Hey everybody, welcome back to the Connection Project with Sally Davidson here, and I'm here with my guest this week, Rachel Dick, and I'm always gonna say, am I supposed to say, and just FYI, like this is like what happens. Am I supposed to say your name? Tell me how to say your last name.
Rachel Dick is fine.
It's
Yeah.
fine. Okay, because you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what? I'm actually gonna restart that because that was really bad on my part.
Good luck. It's good luck.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, this week to the Connection Project with Sally Davidson here, holistic health coach, breathwork guide, and Reiki master. And I'm here this week, and I'm so excited, as I say every week with my guests, because I love interviewing people with Rachel Dick. And I'm going to give you a little of my background of I met Rachel. She's another nurse coach. I met her when I did one of her containers. For writing and have always wanted to get back to it, but haven't with the craziness of everything you try to pack into our week. But she had a beautiful, beautiful writing course, Heal Your
The
Way. I
right
think it
way.
was
Yeah.
Heal the Right Way. Perfect.
Yeah.
And I did that and it was a beautiful container and she's continued to do that and expand it and grow it. And so I met her through that. And then I follow her in the nurse coaching world, and she's doing amazing, beautiful things. And so I invited her to be a guest today. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Rachel. She's a registered nurse, a board certified holistic coach on a mission to support her clients' healing journey through the power of creativity. In 2022, she gave life to Heal the Right Way, an interactive workshop geared to helping people discover their voice and become skilled storytellers. She coaches clients in both a group and individual setting, helping them heal from their past, create confidence in their lives, and express themselves authentically. I gotta say, people, I don't know what my problem is today, but I'm definitely having some issues. But that's how we like to keep it real here on the Connection Project because we're all humans living this human experience. And so we have these moments. So Rachel, welcome. Um, I am really excited to have you because as we were talking as we always do before we start recording, and Rachel has such an immense amount of stuff to share. So we don't even know today where this is going to go, but that's the secret sauce, I think, and the magic to sometimes when I'm interviewing people because I'm excited because I'm not sure where the conversation is going to go. And I'm just really excited because I have to be honest, I love watching your journey. I still want to write my book. I actually just had a tarot reading the other day, and she, for the third person, has told me I'm going to write a book. So that's the third
Yeah.
intuitive told me that. So I don't know when that's going to be, but I love watching your journey because you're doing so many different things and still serving as we did as nurses, but in such a different way. And then allowing people to come to their authentic self with their writing or opening that up for them for the first time, whether it's going to be to write a book, because everybody is not going to write a book, although I think everybody has a book in them, but just in journaling or allowing them to get their stuff out on paper. So, yeah, so I'm so happy. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. I'm so excited to be here. I'm super excited for this conversation. Thank you for that beautiful intro. And yeah, this feels like full circle because you were in my very first um, container. And I think it was called The Nurse's Way back then. I have since changed the name. I've since
That's
broadened
right.
it
It
up.
was called
Yeah. The
I
Nurse's
was in
Way.
my head going between the Artist's Way, which I knew it wasn't because that's the book,
Right.
and then the Nurse's Way, and then the newer name. And
Yeah.
so yeah, jumbled that up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 all good. So we are like full circle, and and I've brought in like in the beginning it was just for nurses, now it's for anyone, um, and yeah, lots of different things going on. I'm super excited to dive into this conversation and just talk about all things self-expression, nursing, burnout, all the things, generational trauma. We can go all sorts of different directions.
I know. That's why I'm always excited, and that's why I like to leave it organic because I just think the guests they come with what their forte is, I guess, but everybody has a story and everybody, around this idea about connection and disconnection and why I even decided to put this podcast together. But in my heart, I'd love to hear people's stories and love to see like what their hero's journey is or what they're doing in service to create more connection in the world. And we both know that in the nurse coaching world, like, listen, I've said this before and I've said it on podcasts. I think that there's a movement for the broken healthcare system that nurses found nurse coaching because they're individually all healing, and then we're going out and healing the world in many, many different ways. And I think that is, in my opinion, was divinely guided. And whatever divine being you believe in, right? So that's my woo, but I 100% believe that. Some are going to go back to the bedside. Some are just going to change people. So then they're going to go back to the bedside, and it really is a ripple effect. And so what you're doing out in the world with creativity and with your work with generational trauma, healing your own generational trauma, the writing and all the things you're doing, I just am going to put that question, like, what is connection to you, and what has led you back to be so connected and work on your own self to be more connected? Because a lot of us in the nurse coaching world, and I don't want to put labels on anybody, but we hear it all the time. We're disconnected in one way, shape, from their body, from their self. And so, like, what is connection in your words, and how has it impacted you to now come to this career path change? And, what have you learned about yourself to bring all this out to everybody?
Yeah. Ooh, I love this. Okay, so yeah, the word connection, what does it mean? It's interesting because I'm thinking back to the beginning of my hero's journey, so to speak. We can start when I was, and obviously there's always the beginning before the beginning, but if I'm going to go back to when I was working bedside and kind of burnt out and feeling misaligned, I would say when in that moment of my journey, I definitely knew what disconnection felt like. I knew what the opposite of connection was. I'm not sure that I knew what true connection felt like. Um, and in thinking about that word, it's interesting because I feel like I've very recently gone through this shift where my focus has turned a little bit from like those external ambitions, external goals, dreams, successes to my internal world. And I know you do a lot of somatic work and you're down the somatic rabbit hole. And I think somatics and diving into the nervous system work has really taught me how to just connect to myself, like what it literally feels like to be present, to be in a moment. Like I was just reflecting on this yesterday. I was thinking like, this is so strange. I feel like I was having a really good few days. I took this beautiful trip with my kids last week. We went to our old community where we used to live and we visited old friends, and I kind of came back on a high, and I was having like just several days of just feeling really good. And I was just like kind of reflecting, like nothing external had changed. Like my external problems were still there. The things that bother me about my life were still there. But I was like, wow, I have this like new capacity to just like be at peace and just be like okay with whatever is and know that I can handle whatever comes my way, positive and the joy, the good stuff, the challenging things. So yeah, I think connection really just comes down to being able to be present, being able to be in a moment, and really being able to just feel what's going on, right? Like we live so disconnected from our bodies. I think this is Western culture, and just a lot of us have just been acclimated to just disconnecting from our bodies, like numbing. And I think it really just comes back to how can we connect to ourselves? How can we actually feel what's going on in our bodies? How can we tune into our intuition? Um, how can we follow those internal nudges and live the life that we want to live? So that's my long answer. And yeah, I'd say I've come a long way. Not that there's like a destination or a place that we arrive at, and there's always so much growth and expansiveness ahead of us. But if I look back to that version of Rachel that was like at the bedside, and wasn't really loving her job, wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was feeling restless. I was feeling there was probably a lot of low level anger, frustration as well. Um, and yeah, it just feels like here I am. Like it's 3 years later, and it's been so much work and so much effort and so much going inwards and learning so much in such a short amount of time. But I'm able to really, in this moment right now on this podcast, I'm able to pause and be like, wow, like I am a different person. Like I am a person that like can breathe, like I can take a deep breath, I can be in the moment, I can enjoy life, I can look at my kids playing and just be in gratitude and just enjoy these little micro moments. And so I think this recent shift for me has been around like letting go, not letting go, because I think the big successes are important. I think it's really important to have big goals and big dreams. And I think it's important to stay connected to that, but to also at the same time be able to just drop into those micro moments and just like really enjoy the tiniest little things and just feel gratitude
Mhm.
and joy for this journey of being alive. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so my favorite word. My new favorite word is juicy. Like that is so juicy. Like that just lights me up because I have been experiencing some of my own shifts. And um yeah, I left a breathwork session last night and I've been doing breathwork in this little town north of me and it's a kind of a summer town. So it has the lull of the winter and they are experiencing breathwork up there. And they have embraced me. It's like when something gets dropped on your lap and you're like been asking for it, but then it happens and you're like, this can't be true. Like, and they are like embracing breath work up there in this small community. And last night I went up and breathed like 9 women, but about, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them were like college girls. So wasn't aware that they were younger. And so I adjusted a little bit. But when I left, my heart was so full with that micro moment of like, I talked a lot about anxiety and body images, and I adjusted like my session a little bit. And I know that they were coming in like, what is happening? Because their boss um decided that she wanted to do this for her staff, which was beautiful because there's just a lot of anxiety going on. And so I just laughed. And that was one of those micro moments, right? Where you're just like, yeah, like I want my business or I want my life to like be this. But like if I'm not enjoying this, like what just happened? Like, no, in those moments, I'm not making like selling this big container, right? But there were 9 people in that room that were affected,
Yeah.
maybe 10, including me. And those are the micro moments that I've really been shifting towards lately. Also, like, what is my practice? What is my business? What does my life really look like? And what really is important? And so I can relate to that 100% because I've been having those shifts and those moments. And in those moments, I feel the most connected to myself, to life, to nature. Like you get that feeling in your body that it's like, oh, this is what it's about,
Mm. Yeah.
right? The other things can come in and they're great and abundance, all of that, there's nothing wrong with wanting that or calling that in. But it's in those moments. And sometimes for me, I was always grasping for like what I could do that somebody else was doing or whatever. And then you're missing like what is right here.
Yeah.
And that's what I just, from what you said, like beautiful explanation
Yeah.
of connection.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a lot of work, I think, to grow
Yeah.
that capacity to feel joy. Like like as we're talking, as I'm listening to you, I'm like reflecting back again at like old versions of myself. And it's not like I never felt joy before. It's not like I never felt, different big emotions, but it just there wasn't that connection piece. And it's like now when I feel joy, it's like I feel joy. Like when someone gives me a compliment, I don't push it away. I'm like, thank
Mhm.
you. And I've made a habit of saying, receiving that. I'm receiving that, and the beginning it felt weird. It felt awkward. Why am I saying that? Like maybe they think I'm funny for saying that. And now I'm just like, no, I'm literally speaking into the world that when someone says something nice to me, I want to take it in and I don't want to like push a gift back at the gift giver, And so yeah, again, like those micro juicy moments is really, it's worth that.
Yeah, I think it was Brene Brown that said, I mean, joy is like one of the hardest emotions for us to, deal with or accept. And I'm also one that could not receive, right? So even this breathwork I'm doing in a small community, it kind of got like weirdly handed to me. And then I've been going up there and it wouldn't at all be the place I would think would be exploding with breathwork. And somebody said to me, um, Why can't you just receive this? And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." Like, right? Like, I'm honest. Like, I still struggle with stuff. So I was like, yeah, why can't I just receive this? Like, why can't I ride this wave of making an impact? And why don't I just allow that? That's my purpose right now and just see where that goes. But we have
Yeah.
so much trouble, and there's so many people out there for our listeners. Like, so many people have trouble receiving. They just automatically want to push it away because we've been doing that for years, right? Oh, I don't need help. I want help, but I don't need it. Like, because we have so many protectors. So I love that you like brought that up. I know I kind of went off on there, but yeah, it's just it's actually something that I've really been also shifting and dealing with recently. So it definitely landed with me. So
I
yeah,
love that.
thanks. Yeah.
Mm.
So what you have been on a journey, and it's so beautiful to see that you are like shifting in this amazing way because when that magic starts to happen, it really you feel it on your soul level, right? It's like those moments are like soul connected moments. They just create you to you not think about any of the bad stuff, anything that's going on. You just are connecting to the moment, which is so much about presence, connection, all the same. So tell me kind of like, I guess, how you got there
Yeah, definitely.
and how
Okay,
you
so
started with this beautiful journey with all your writing.
yeah. So my story started with a lot of, I call them nudges from the universe, or sometimes not a nudge, sometimes like an actual kick in the pants. Um, but I had many situations that kind of really spoke to me, and where it was like obvious that I needed to change things in my life, that I needed to start living up to my full potential. And so basically I worked as a med surg ortho nurse for about 10 years, traditional nursing job, really good job, really lovely place to work, really awesome coworkers. Northern California. So in California, we have ratios, nurses get paid really well, we have good benefits. And so it was a very comfortable job. Um, but I would say the last like 3, 4 years, something really was missing for me. Like something I was feeling very restless. I wouldn't quite call it burnout, but I was definitely heading in that direction. And I just felt like I had more to give. And um, basically, what happened was during the pandemic, I spoke up as a registered nurse and talked about some concerns that I had. And I shared, my opinions, and this was my opinion as a nurse. I was not representing the place that I worked. And I said to this reporter, that the pandemic is very real and COVID is hitting hospitals really hard. But at the same time, I believe as a nurse, best interest of my patients and our community, that children need to be in school. And I just went on a whole tangent about, how I felt that the shutdown was impacting our elderly and increasing rates of alcoholism, suicide, all of these things. And that was a really challenging thing for me to do. It was something I wanted to do. I wanted to speak up. I wanted to use my voice. But in the back of my mind, it was like there was all these worst case scenarios. What if my boss finds out? What if I get in trouble at work? What if people hate me? What if I get doxxed? All of these things. And lo and behold, my worst nightmare came true. Like all these worst case scenarios that I was mulling on and I was envisioning came to be. My hospital found out about the interview. I was punished. I was reprimanded. I was suspended from work without pay. I had to sit through HR meetings. It was a whole thing. I ended up keeping my job. I ended up like fighting for my job and fighting for my rights. I was the union rep at that hospital for 6 years. I know our contract like the back of my hand. I thankfully had, people that advocated for me and people that helped me. I ended up keeping my job for about another couple of years after that incident. But that incident was such a turning point for me. It was like, wow, like Rachel, when you were in that moment, when you were speaking to that reporter, you felt like $1,000,000. I felt like confident and I was expressing myself. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to share my voice. Of course, the retribution and the punishment part, like that part wasn't fun. But that part is actually what taught me that I needed to go my own way. That if I want to be able to be free, to speak my truth, to say what I want to say, to not be looking over my shoulder, not worrying about censorship, all these things that were going on, I thought I need to be my own boss. It's my only option, right? And my dad's an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. He's opened many different businesses, some more successful than others. But I saw how hard it was. And I was always like, I will never be an entrepreneur. I will never be a business owner. It's part of why I became a nurse. You show up, you get your paycheck. It's real convenient. It's real nice, until it wasn't. And so I wasn't even planning to become an entrepreneur. I just started looking into holistic nursing. Like how can I fuse and like holistic stuff with nursing? And I've always been into holistic stuff. I've been doing yoga for years. I've been doing breath work. Like I really believe in the body's power to heal itself, but I wasn't trained as anything holistic. And so I ended up getting certified as a holistic nurse coach. And then from there, I was like, I'm starting my own private practice. And so I followed all the steps. I set up my business, got my LLC, and then everyone talks about a niche. You need a niche, you need to know who you serve, you need to know who your client is. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about what's my niche? What's my niche? I kind of went through a bunch of different avatars of who I serve. Um, and then I remembered an old friend that I had who I had met on a plane like 6 years prior, Tilda, who you have met because she ran the first few seasons of my course with me. And I remembered I had this friend who I met on a plane. Tilda has written many books and she's a nurse. And I thought, oh, isn't that cool? Like writing and she's a nurse and she shares her story. And she's always told me over the years that I should write, I should share my story. And it just kind of started coming to me like self-expression. That's what you want to do. Like I've always struggled a little bit with my self-expression. As a kid, I'm the fifth of seven children. I kind of got lost in the mix. I feel like it was just like, we're all very loud. We're all very expressive. It's very hard to like be heard in a family like that sometimes. And I always knew I had something to say, but I didn't necessarily know how to say it. And so I started to realize like, ooh, this is my client. Like, this is who I want to work with. Like somebody that has a message, somebody that wants a podcast, maybe a nurse who's wanted to write a book or share her stories. And I also started thinking about it a lot in the nursing domain, because I think a lot of nurses fall into this archetype of people who maybe they had artistic passions, maybe they had creative pursuits when they were younger. I've worked with a lot of people that like, oh, I majored in dance in college, or I majored in, Western literature, and then I got practical and I went to nursing school and became a nurse, and the rest is history. And nursing is a wonderful career, and I'm so glad that I became a nurse. But there were a lot of creative and artistic pursuits that I left behind when I went into nursing. My original dream was to be like an interior designer or to work with colors, and like I was really good at like drawing and art as a kid, writing. I loved to write. But then I got real serious. I had kids young, and everything was just about like being serious and showing up and working your shift and getting through. And I was meeting a lot of nurses with very similar stories who had left a piece of themselves behind. And also I was meeting a lot of nurses with amazing stories that I really felt like the world needed to hear, especially during the pandemic, when like everyone was kind of wondering like what's going on inside that magical place that you all work, because it was in the news, and but a lot of nurses, I think, struggle to express themselves. I think, a lot of doctors write books. That's very common. Doctors don't struggle to stand up on a stage and share their story. I don't think that's generally an issue, but a lot of nurses, maybe it's like this female archetype of just, being quiet and keeping things to ourselves and not sharing. But I was really noticing, and through research and books that I was reading, I was learning about how self-expression is healing. Like there's actually healing. It's actually like, it heals your soul. And I'll digress for a moment. I read recently somewhere there's I don't know which indigenous culture it is, but there's a Native American culture where if somebody is sick, they will ask them, when did you last tell your story? And I just thought that was so beautiful. It's like their belief is that you actually get physically ill if you hold those stories in and you don't share them with the world. And so my coaching practice just started to coalesce around this idea of self-expression and sharing our stories and creativity. I discovered The Artist's Way, which is like a pivotal book in my life, in my business. I based my whole group coaching program on The Artist's Way. We read it together, we explore it together, and it's a beautiful book about creative recovery, about getting in touch with that inner child. Our inner child likes to play, likes to get messy, likes to roll down a grassy hill, and then we get older and we get really serious and we lock those parts of ourselves away. And one more story I'll share is when I thought of the artist, when I thought of Heal the Right Way, or The Nurse's Way as it was originally called, I was laying in bed one night and my throat was on fire. Like I felt like I was swallowing razor blades. I was like, I got to go to urgent care tomorrow. I didn't know what was wrong. I actually had strep throat, but I was in pain. Strep throat hurts. Like I hadn't had it since I was a small kid. And I was like, this hurts. And I'm laying there, I can't sleep. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm feverish. I'm kind of in this like altered state of mind, when you're like, when you're feverish and you're
Yeah.
not quite there. And I had been reading The Artist Way. I had been following the program for a few months, and I was like, oh my God, like it came to me like a lightning strike. I was like, we're going to make a program. I'm going to ask Tilda for help. She's going to like support us, and it's going to, it's going to follow the book, and I'm going to do writing prompts. And like the whole program just like came to me like a download. And I got up and I wrote it all down real quickly. But then afterwards, when I was reflecting, I just thought it was so cool that this all happened with the strep throat, because it's like we know the throat chakra is the seat of
Mhm.
self-expression, using our voice, sharing our voice with the world. And there it was. It was like my throat chakra was literally on fire, like it was just burning, and it was like this is it. This is the way. Um, and I want to say that it was all like easy and everything just flowed from there. No, like it came to me in an inspirational hit, and definitely the idea came with a lot of ease, but the actual implementation took a lot of courage. It took a lot of messy action. It took a lot of, willingness to make mistakes, willingness to make a fool out of myself. My very first flyer that I posted had the wrong times on it. I thought the earth was going to open up and swallow me. Like I thought it was like the most mortifying thing that ever happened to me. And it was like, no, I just went into Canva and I fixed it and I posted it and everything was okay. But um, so yeah, everything kind of evolved from there. And this program I'm about to launch in July. I'm going to announce my 7th season, which is going live in September. I've had over 50 people go through this program, and everyone says it is just life changing. Like it really, my goal, my mission is that by the end of this program, you have some sort of writing practice. You have a practice where you're taking your thoughts, you're putting them on paper. People who go through this program rediscover old hobbies. I had one woman who was in her 60s, and she's like, I haven't written poetry since high school. She used to write these beautiful poems. And she, during my program, she went and dusted them off and started revising them and started writing poetry. And so I've really been able to see so many people go back and find things that used to bring them joy, that used to light them up, and like bring it back into their lives. So it's been a ride. It's been a wild ride, but it's been super fun.
I love that. It really was. It was interesting when I did it because it was your first one and I saw it and I was like, because I'm not really a writer, or that's what I say. I say I'm not creative. I'm not a writer. I'm not this. I'm not that. We
Right.
always put these labels on ourselves that we're not this, we're not that. But when you start writing, then it's amazing what comes out. I just had a client this morning saying, um, we were talking a little bit about journaling, and then she was saying to me, yeah, I've been trying to start that, and I started writing, and then I don't even know what ended up coming out on the paper. Like all these epiphanies were coming out on the paper. And that's what the amazing thing about writing is, once you get like some of the shit out of your mind, and brain dump, as you say, then like it's amazing what can happen, whether it's our emotions, whether it's a story, whether it's a remembrance, whether and starting to attach back to those things. So it really was very helpful for me. Um, it really was a beautiful program. And I just love the way that you connected with Tilda and how the universe works, honestly. And like the thought that you then reconnected with her to launch this program and have found yourself and connected back to yourself through writing and other things. But really the main premise sounds like it's been a lot of writing to again get to this point of present day, where you were saying, you had the Canva thing where you had the wrong time. I mean, I literally did that the other day. I launched like a 4-week self-love program for the summer. It was just like a quick thought, a quick download. I did some podcasts around self-love of Brene Brown's, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll launch like just a low cost, little 4-week thing. And so I sent out all the marketing and everything, and I never put a time anywhere. People signed up. There's not even a time.
Oh wow.
I had a time in my schedule book, but people can't really do that time because I didn't even post. It wasn't until somebody texted me and said, I'm thinking about signing up for that. It sounds really nice. But like, what time are you holding it? And then I was like, As soon as they said that, I was like, interesting. And so the shifts that happen for any of us, because that would have sent me into such a tizzy. I probably would never have launched another small program. And I was just the other day, I was like, oh, shit. I didn't put a time. Like, and then so I had to backtrack to people that signed up to make sure like the time now is going to work. They've paid. And then the new people that were thinking of coming in. So it created more work for me, but I didn't get any chest pain. My throat didn't close up. I didn't feel like I was going to die.
Right.
And that would have happened before. So the
Isn't that
shifts we have
amazing?
made, right? The shit. And I celebrated that. In that
Yeah.
moment, I was like, oh, interesting. This did not really bother me. Like, yeah, it was kind of dumb that I didn't put the time anywhere, but I don't know. I just didn't, it didn't bother me. That would have really set me over the edge in the past. And then I probably wouldn't have launched anything for a while because I would have been like, oh, I'm such a failure. And so for the people listening, like there are so many modalities today. Rachel's talking about some of the modalities that she did, and writing is a big part of her practice and like how she's gotten from point A to point B, but she's done other things, I'm sure, during the way, but writing is one like big piece. So as we talk about things and you're listening, like there's so many things that are out there other than what if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling anxious or you're a new entrepreneur or you're trying to get that new job. You're trying to get promoted in your regular job or whatever it is, right? You want to sit on a board, whatever it is, and you don't have the confidence. There are so many ways when you start to get connected back to yourself, um, and you have that self-love and that confidence and yeah, that you can go and move forward. And when you start to see the shifts, right, it's amazing. Like you were talking about being present with the kids and being able to enjoy that moment or making a mistake and it not being the end of the world. Those aha moments are really, really satisfying.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So here you are. You've done this work with writing. And so what else have you done to bring yourself to this journey? And what other things, like what was hard for you? Like going into entrepreneurship is really, really hard, right? Like it's not for the faint of heart. I'm not sure why a bunch of burnt out nurses want to change their career think being an entrepreneur is going to be easier. That is such a bait and switch. I don't even know
Yeah.
what else is, right? Because it's freaking hard. And it really brings out all of your stuff, comes front and center. And so for you, maybe talk a little bit to the audience about what came up for you as you started to go into entrepreneurship? Because you just told your story, but like there's deeper like stuff, if you don't mind, like digging in a
Absolutely.
little bit deeper to what comes up. Because like for me, like imposter syndrome, I'm like the comparison queen. I'm starting to finally, after so many years, starting to like, after tons of work, somatic work, like not worrying about what other people are doing and just do me.
Yeah.
Which if we could just bypass all of that, it's so much more bountiful and more great when we can just be really our authentic selves. Um, but yeah, it's always a ride, right? It's like that ride at Disney, the wild Hatter, whatever, the crazy ride, right? Of
Yeah.
for us to get here.
Yeah.
So kind of, can you dig into that a little bit and the struggles there and how you got here?
Absolutely. Yeah. I could not agree more. I think entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey. And I did not know that going in, like total bait and switch. I thought, oh, it's going to be so much better. It's just going to be like
I'm gonna work
easier.
from home and I'm gonna work
Yeah.
from home and it's gonna be so amazing and I'm gonna do
Yeah.
online work and I'm gonna be my own boss and oh yeah and it is like I
It has,
literally think someone is laughing somewhere like
yeah.
it's like a candid camera moment because they're like
Like, haha, I tricked you.
right. I mean, there's other coaches, we're talking about nurse coaches, and I say that because I think that I 100% believe this is like a mission from the universe to heal us all so that somehow healthcare is eventually healed. But it is a spiritual journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It is totally,
insane.
yeah. For me, it forced me to take stock of so many things. And it's crazy because it's like, again, reflecting back to like 3 years ago, Rachel, and where I am now, I'm a different person. And it has rippled out into like my relationships are so much deeper and more trusting, and my finances I've gotten in order. Like I've gotten much more like about my budgeting, and I've learned how to use spreadsheets. I've learned how to be like organized in my life with my time, with my tasks. And that's something that I've struggled with for much of my life. I always felt like I was, not that I never feel like I'm still flying by the seat of the pants. I have my moments for sure. But I'm in flow. Like I understand where I need to be. I know how to use systems. And the biggest thing I would say is like realizing that I can do hard things. Like I used to be very intimidated by the tech in business, right? Like yes, I'm a millennial, but it's still, I'm not like, I don't consider myself like a techie person. Um, but I was able to figure it out. Like I was able to figure out, most things are figure outable. And that's what has really helped me. Like now when I'm in a crisis or something comes up or there's a twist or a turn that I wasn't expecting, a carpool canceled or whatever, it's like, cool, like we can figure this out. Like I've learned how to, like I built a website, so I can do pretty much anything, and then learning how to use resources to support me. Like you asked earlier, like what other modalities have I used? And it's funny because I recently like sat down and made a list, and it was a really long fucking list. I was like, what is wrong with you, Rachel? Like I was like almost feeling bad. I'm like, I'll just try to list as many as I can, but like I'm super into yoga. I run. I have dabbled in psychedelics and microdosing, somatic work, breath work. I'm a huge fan of breath work. I do breath work every single day. Like it is a staple. I did breath work before I got on this call. Meditation, frequency work, retreats, like on and on and on, right? And the list was really, really long. And I remember when I made that list, I had this initial like sinking feeling of like, it's not working. Like you've tried all these things. What's the matter with you? You still have moments where you feel anxious or depressed. Like, and then I thought, wait, like, first of all, like there's no comparing. Like I just talked about how I'm a different person than I was a few years ago. 100% these things are working. But it also tuned me into like sometimes we do actually need to stop trying so hard. So it was almost like I took that efforting energy that worked in every other area of my life, right? I mean, that's how you get through nursing school. I mean, you pull all-nighters, you show up to clinical at 6 a.m, like you push, you push. I worked night shift for years, which is so unnatural to the system, but it's like you just push, you get through, you drink another cup of coffee. And I was taking that same energy and bringing it to my personal growth and development, where it was just like more breath work, more, cracking the whip. And then I was like, maybe we do actually need to let go a little. Like maybe the key here is a little bit of surrender, a little bit of letting go, a little bit less perfectionism, a little bit of just being, like more playing. And that's something that's also been really challenging for me, and something that I'm trying to lean into more is like allowing myself to do nothing, like allowing myself to lay on the couch and space out. I recently incorporated like 15 minutes of silence into my day, which is quite new for me. I've been meditating for years, but I always use a guided meditation. I always have something in my ear, music, a guided meditation. And I was like, we're going to try meditating in silence. And it's been hard. It's been hard. It's like 15 minutes feels like an hour. I'm like, what is happening right now? It's like time is literally slowing down. But that's just something that's been really important for me because of the way my brain works. Is like I'm always on to the next thing. I'm very goal oriented, future focused, perfectionist. I love checking a box like that. Like there's no greater dopamine hit to me than like checking a box, and really just stepping back from that and being like, yeah, personal growth is really important. Personal development, all this stuff. I'm a huge fan. I'm like, do all the things, like throw everything at the wall.
Me
But at the
too.
same time, yeah, but at the same time, like sometimes we need to just go on a vacation or get coffee with a friend or lay on the grass and stare at the sky and watch the clouds go by. Sometimes we actually need to let go because it's like we're gripping and we're trying and we're efforting, and we have to really just trust divine timing and trust the unfolding of things, which I think is the hardest thing to do,
Yes.
to
I
just
just
surrender.
literally, I just literally had that conversation with someone again last night about the grip.
Yeah.
Like, we hold on, and I still do this. I was just trying to make a decision about something I thought I was going to be doing, and now this other thing came in front of me. And is that the new shiny object, or is that really what I'm supposed to be focusing my efforts on? Because just sometimes it's confusing when you're someone that is always like, oh, I want to do this credentialing, I want to do this training, I want to do this. So But I was talking to a different client and talking about like that grip holds us back. But you know, it is so hard to change that patterning, but it can, for you guys that are listening out there, it can be changed. Because, right, I do that little thing, you know, if you're holding a pencil's not heavy, right? But if you're holding it for an hour, then 2 hours, then 3 hours, you know, your arm starts to go down. So just think about when you're holding on to that thought or that thing you think you're supposed to be doing, or that relationship that's not working, or whatever, it's so draining on us. And so, and I said this even in the nurse coaching circles and the coaching circles, I was like, you know, a lot of us left because of certain things and individual things, but then we come into this new circle where it can be a bit competitive or a comparison if you let it. And so at one point I was like, did I trade one thing for another? Like, okay, I have to check myself because, and those are internal checks, right? Like, how do I actually want to live my life, and how do I want my business to grow, and how is it really supposed to be looking? Because some people are supposed to have 7-figure businesses, and am I really supposed to have I don't really know. Like, is that really what's going to light me up, or is that my thought of what was going to light me up, or is it making change in a community and incorporating, you know, these things? Like, I and I still honestly, Rachel, aren't always for sure, but I have been tuning in more after years of work to what feels good. Does this right now feel good? Or does the thought of this getting me to the second level, to the third level, to the fourth level, does that feel good? But that's not even here.
Right.
So what feels good today? Because I'm not 20, right? For me, I'm not 20 anymore, right? So what feels good for me? Because I am in the last probably transition of my life. So I'm not saying I can't think about the future, but like I have learned with all this work and the breath work and the presence and somatic work and inner child work, like what's here now? Like what does that little girl want right now? Like what's going to
Yeah.
make her feel safe and good, and it's okay to have dreams, right? And it's okay to want things, but if you're missing everything in the process, leaving one toxic thing for another is not, you know, I had to say to myself, well, that's not the answer. And I'm not saying coaching is toxic. I'm saying like if I'm creating it to be toxic because
Right.
I'm always
Right.
worrying about I'm not achieving the goal.
Right. Right. Or taking
What
your
is
old patterns and just like
right? Just putting
transposing
it
them
into
onto the
this,
new.
right? We're
Right.
putting it
Right.
into this. So yeah, I had to have quite a few meetings with myself and my little self to be
Yeah.
like, okay, like what is actually going to make me feel good?
Right.
And so I've been incorporating, since the weather's finally nicer here, um, you know, an afternoon hammock,
I love it.
15 minutes, and just going out, putting my feet up, getting outside, laying on my hammock. And again, nothing in my ears, no scrolling. Maybe I take a picture at the end, but for the 15 or 20 minutes that I'm taking my break, um, I'm just listening to the birds. I'm feeling the wind or the sun. The other day I went out with a blanket because it was a little chilly because the sun wasn't out. And I was like, I think I'm still going out. I wrapped in a blanket for like 15, 20 minutes. I was so snuggly. And then I got up and went back to work. Because sometimes when you're home, right, you're working from home, it can create a whole nother set. Like it's supposed to be, excuse me, it's supposed to be amazing when you're home to work from home. But like today, I'm getting ready to record, and I had, you know, the tree guy came to cut the trees down, and I was like, he wasn't, you know, he wasn't supposed to be here right now. So, um, if I wasn't home, that wouldn't happen, but I'm home. So, but I can look at it two ways, like, oh, the tree guy came, and I had to run around right before I'm recording, or I could look at it like, oh God, that's gonna get done. Great, the tree guy came,
Right. Right.
right? And so, what kind of life do I want to choose to live?
Mm.
And it's my life or your life. It's not someone else's life because that may be working for them, but it may not work for me. And just like all the modalities you were listing, because I laugh because, you know, I do everything too. Um, it's when we're talking, when you guys are like, if for the listeners, like if it doesn't mean you have to do all those modalities, right? It's great to like experiment and find out holistically what's going to work for you, what's going to feel good in your body, and then decide like what, because meditation doesn't work for everybody. right? I mean, if you have a really dysregulated nervous system, sometimes asking someone to slow down is really hard for them. Like it
Yeah.
just doesn't feel good and it takes a
And it can
long time.
backfire. Yeah.
Yeah, it can backfire. So that's how I ended up with breath work because a lot of my clients, I was a meditator and I went through a program where I learned a lot of meditation and mantra work and it really helped me. But I was coming across people that were just getting stuck on like, I can't meditate. Like we're just stuck on that. And so the
That's
breath,
how I came. Yeah, that's how I came to breath work because I'm married to someone that meditates. Has my husband's been meditating for 15 years, like daily, like a lot of meditation. And I always used to look at him and be like, I can't do it. And I would feel like this comparison. And finally, I was like, wait, maybe my meditation could look different. Maybe I could meditate in
right,
a more active way. And that's where yoga and breath work came in because
right,
yoga is a mindfulness practice, but you're not just laying there in silence. And I did yoga for many years, and then I did breath work for many years before I was able to really sit in silence. And that for me, it was a gateway. And I was eventually able to meditate. And I think meditation is really important. I think meditation is great, but we don't always have to start there, and doesn't always have to look a certain way. We can come to things from different places, and like everything that you're talking about reminds me of like having like a yes and mentality, right? Like being able to hold capacity for both. Like yes, modalities are wonderful. Like I do breath work every single day. I'm a fan of all these things. I think they really support us. And can we approach them from a lighter place? Can we approach them not from this like grinding, pushing kind of like gotta check the box kind of energy,
right.
and just and not beat ourselves up if we miss a day, right? The way that I structure my self-care is basically I have 4 things that I try to do every single day. I try to breathe, meditate, move, and journal. And if I do one of those things, I count it as successful. On the weekends, I allow myself to do none. Most of the time I do, but I allow myself to do none. And for me, this has been like a huge part of my shift is learning to build habits in a more compassionate way. Um, I used to do a lot of beating myself up. I really thought that if I let go of guilt, I would just be laying in bed like a sloth all day and I'd never move. I really had that fear. And I sometimes still do have that fear where it's just like, but I have to beat myself up or I'm not going to do the things. And it's like, no, like, yes, and like we can find this middle ground where we're doing the things, but we're also not beating ourselves up when we don't. We're allowing ourselves to swap out other kinds of self care if we're feeling like it, and making it small, like not making it bigger than it is. The reason that I do those 4 things, I don't give any time for it, right? So if I want to, because I love checking a box, if I want to check the box, I could allow myself to meditate for 3 minutes. And then I still meditated, right? And 3 minutes is very valuable. And so just really allowing myself to be flexible with it. This is something I teach with the morning pages because in her book, Julia Cameron says like 3 pages, longhand, every single day in the morning. And I work with a lot of nurses, recovering perfectionists, people pleasers, people that really feel like they have to do it exactly the way they were told. And they give up. They give up after a week or 2 weeks because it's too hard. And I really tell them, like, cut it down to 1 page. It doesn't have to be every single day. You can do it on the computer instead of longhand. You can do voice notes, like make it your own, right? What is the concept that Julia Cameron is getting at? She wants you to take the thoughts that are blocking your creative flow and take them out of your head and put them somewhere.
Right.
So if that looks like doing a long voice note, or if that looks like doing your morning pages most days, or if that looks like doing 1 page instead of 3 days, or if that looks like doing it in the evening instead of doing it in the morning, it's going to be that much easier to build the habit. It's going to allow you to get back on the bandwagon. It's going to allow you to have compassion for yourself. When we come at things from a very rigid perspective, if it has to look a certain way, I have to do it exactly how I was told, course we're going to give up because most of us don't like to be told what to do. Most of us don't
Yes,
like to be controlled. So
I was just
why don't
thinking,
you take the control, make it your own, figure out what works, tweak it, change it, iterate, like just allow for failure. And it's just, to me, it's just been such a different way of approaching building habits. And I've been able to build habits that I had been trying to build for years and years and years and wasn't able to, or I was able to, but like I would fall off the bandwagon and I was like, that's it, I failed, right? Like
right.
I didn't run for 3 months. I'm not a runner anymore. That's it. It's over. It's over, and allowing myself to approach it in a different way. And using running is another really good example. That's another thing that I use for stress relief. I would say I love running, but I don't. I like it, and it's really good for me, and it's easy and it's accessible, but it's really, really hard. So something that I did about a year ago was to keep myself on track with running. I made a little, it's actually on my whiteboard behind me, like a little box. And every time I go for a 2.5 mile run, I get a mark. I get a mark. I get a mark. And I've done 80 runs this year, like since I started this system. And I'm like, isn't that amazing? And there were times where I fell off the bandwagon and I didn't run for 3 weeks, and that guilty voice started coming back in. And it was like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. Like, you're still a runner. You can always come back to it. You can always come back to the practice. And so, yeah, I'd say, like, if I were to distill the number one thing that came out of my personal growth journey, is just a kinder inner voice. The person that I spend 24/7 with, she still gets shrill sometimes. Like, she still gets anxious, she's still my ego, but she's quieter, she's nicer, she's kinder, and she's just so much more pleasant to be with. And to me, that's priceless. You can't put a price on that.
It is so true. I think that's a great place for us to kind of start to end our conversation. But I have to say that everything you said lands with me. It is so true. And taking those moments that are, we think it has to be all or nothing, or two things can't be true, but they can. And so finding what works specifically for you, that's why dabbling with a bunch of different things is great, because then you find what works for you. Even though I meditate daily, but I have this passion for breath work, but breath work's not for everybody. I know the healing powers of it, but some people are just not ready. They're not ready for that, and that's okay. And so finding the things out there that work for you individually, not what works for your friend, not what works for your husband, what works for you. And that, I think a big part of that is really finding out who you are, what makes you tick, and what kind of life you want to lead in this moment. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but today. Like, what's working for you today, and being kinder, like you said, and more compassionate. I 100% agree with that key, which sounds easy, but sometimes it's not easy for all of us, a lot of us. Um, but yeah, thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank
So
you,
much
Sally.
to talk about with you, but I appreciate so much you coming on and sharing your story, about the writing and your programs, and like your own journey, because I know it's been a ride for you, and I just see what you're doing in the world, and it's a service to so many people, not just nurses anymore. um, Finding that creative piece in all of us, because there's a lot of people that identify as not creative, and I was one of those. And someone recently said to me today, "Well, you're creative," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." They're like, "Do a podcast, do this," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess that is creative."
Yeah, time to
But
claim that identity.
yeah, finding your voice and just allowing it to shine. So I'm so glad, not that that event happened in the hospital, but for you then to be able to take your journey and know that you wanted to be able to speak your authentic voice and be your creative self, because the world would be missing out if that didn't happen. So I am so thankful that you came on today, and I really appreciate everything you're doing, watching from afar, on the socials. So is there
Thank you.
anything um you want to tell our audience about? We're going to share all of Rachel Dick's information, how you can get a hold of her, how you can see her programs. But if she wants to give one last plug for something that's going to be launching for her, I want to give her the floor for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for those beautiful words, Sally. Like I said, this feels like a full circle moment, because you were in my first group, and I'm going to use a Yiddish word, but I'm kvelling. Like, you're just like proud. Like, I'm amazed at everything you've created, and diving into your own journey and your own sense of self, and just touching people in such a powerful way. So I'm really glad to know you, and I'm really, really glad for this opportunity.
Mm.
Yeah, and then in terms of where to find me, the best place to find me is on Facebook. That's where I mostly hang out. I'm on Instagram too, at Nurse Coach Rachel. On Facebook, I'm Rachel Dick Plonka. If you're a nurse, I also have a Facebook group called Nurses Who Write. And then my next group program, Heal the Right Way, launches in September, and that's a 4-month program to help you express yourself authentically and be more creative with a group of awesome, awesome humans. So that launches in September, and just reach out to me if you want to hear more.
And I can tell you, because I did it, which I know we talked about, but if you are thinking and you want to start to write again, or you just want to express like anything, this is a great way to start and get started. So, Rachel, thank you so much. And
Abby.
yeah, I'll be seeing you soon. Bye, everybody. I'll see you all next week.